Please give a big round of applause for Steve Dixon.
Sandy, thank you very, very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning. Really, really appreciate it. I'm glad that the weather's held off just a little bit. This is a really, really important topic, and you can get yourself into a whole lot of trouble speaking about this the right way or the wrong way, and I think that actually summarises where we are as a society today. You know, the freedom of speech, I don't think it exists too much anymore. I think it's been absolutely destroyed, and I'm dismayed with where the world is going. You know, I'm a 55-year-old male. I was born in 1962. I grew up on a farm. Maybe that makes me a little bit backwards, I don't know. But what I do know is I love my family, I love my kids, and most parents who have children, they love their children. They want to look after their children, and it's like a mother duck. You know, you go and try to attack some ducklings, I can tell you what, that mother will put her life on the line and she will protect them with every fibre of her being. And there's no different to a human mum, and there's no different to a human dad. You know, they will protect their children with every ounce of their being. And I think this Safe Schools program, and you know, many people are telling me it doesn't exist anymore, but I can tell you what, we'll keep fighting it until it doesn't exist anymore, because it's wrong, it's abhorrent. And I'll take you through a little journey. You know, I'm a Catholic, I believe in God. In the Bible, you know, talks about men and women. But if you believe in evolution, and you've got every right to believe in that if you wish to, it talks about, you know, we climbed up out of the ocean, we became male and female in every species. So they're on our side too. They believe in, you know, men and women, and we've got to believe in our children. We've got to give our children the opportunity to be able to be children. You know, let them grow up normal, let them grow up and find their feet, and let them realise what it is to be a human being and find their own way. But this philosophy that's being put forward, and I'm going to call them out, this is a Labor Green left-wing ideology that is looking to destroy our children. And I don't know where it came from, I really don't. But if it continues to go down this path, you know, where are our children heading?
Gary Dowsett, Safe Schools, La Trobe University architect, pedophile. He wrote an article in the 80s called Boiled Lollies and Band-Aids. Boiled Lollies and Band-Aids, Gay Men and Kids. In it, he purports pedophiles need our support and we need to construct the child-adult sex issue on our terms. Think about that. La Trobe University nor Gary Dowsett have ever publicly denied or retracted that statement from that article. Also, he says in that article, there is a significant political struggle at stake with 3 legal social questions to win. 1, custody rights for gay men and lesbians. Ladies and gentlemen, that's gay marriage. They've won that. 2, the legal right of pedophiles and their young loves. Excuse me? 3, the sexual rights of children as a whole. This is Gary Dowsett, one of the key architects of Safe Schools at La Trobe University, and they have not answered to that. I would like to also point out that there has been a recent... Thanks, mate. Just take that one. There has been a recent hearing in Parliament that Labor and Liberal and the Greens sat in about Gary Dowsett in March. In response to what I just told you, Nick McKim from the Australian Greens says, we will not support the motion. This was a motion to make Dowsett accountable. The motion is simply a rerun of attacks from 2016 against the integrity of a well-respected academic and the institution that employs him. As is often the case, references from an article published 36 years ago have been removed from their context. Exactly what context is that? And that Gary Dowsett has made a valuable contribution to academic and intellectual life of this country. There is other material that I was going to share today from a Victorian mum of a student attending a Victorian school who is 12 years old in Year 7. I will not be sharing it today as there is children present. Ladies and gentlemen, this is far from an Australian issue. This is actually a United Nations issue, and there's documentation from UNESCO, which is a scientific cultural organisation for the UN, that's written the International Technical Guidance on Sexual Education for ages 5 to 8. I would implore you to research it yourselves, as again, I don't want to repeat the type of study that they would have our 5 and 8-year-olds conducting. Finally, this is a globalist war. It's a banking war, and it's the control of the population in a way that erodes family structures and gives power of our children and our next generation to the state. What's happened is that certain information is coming to light about these crimes of these globalists that would lay waste to our very democracy. And they're going after our children. Today, on this crown right here, which was founded and given our Queen divine mandate by God, thank you, Steve Dixon, to rule the people, not by statute, not by legislature, not by Marxism, not by safe schools, but by God himself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
I will not stand by and watch while our children are used in some obscene experiment which causes them to question their very identity. This is a radical new era we have entered, and it has to stop. A tiny portion of our population is dictating to the majority what they are allowed to think, say and even believe about the basic understanding of who we are as human beings. The rapid rate of change has been breathtaking and has caught many unaware. Some would want us to believe that gender fluid teaching is necessary for all children to be kind and loving to the people that are suffering from gender dysphoria. But is it ever kind and loving to deny the truth and perpetuate a dangerous lie? Which is precisely what gender fluid ideology is. It's a dangerous lie. I want to be known as a person of truth. We just can't be the truth people, we have to be the love people. We must double down on love for others, never hateful or prejudiced, but loving. Love and truth, they are inseparable. Our children deserve nothing less. Gender ideology programs are dangerous, and they do not belong in our schools, and we will continue to expose the lie and reveal the truth, and fight for the removal of these programs.
Do you know what gender theory is?
Yeah.
What is it?
Is it the gender fluidity?
Yeah, that's part of it. What else do you know about it?
Is it the distinct gender roles? The distinct gender male and female? Yeah.
And do you know what the protest is about today? What they're protesting that has to do with?
They don't want gender fluidity, which I think is a bit bullshit. So if you're saying that you're for that, then I'm out of here. But if you're not...
No, I'm only interested in what you think, so to explain what different people think and why. So you think...
I mean, I'm down. Just let anybody be anybody.
Do you think primary school kids should be taught about gender fluidity?
I think they should be taught that there's no roles, and I think the gender fluidity is teaching that there's no roles either, and I think that's important.
This makes out like we go to school and we learn you can be a boy or a girl. They don't do that.
Have you heard of...
Just do that. It's completely up to you.
Have you heard of the resource that's part of the Safe Schools program called the Gender Fairy?
Yeah, the book. It's a reading book, isn't it? Reading time.
What do you know about that?
I'd read it to my kid. If I had a kid.
Why would you read it to your kids?
Because it's about fairies. I don't know.
So in the book, it tells the readers, the little kids, or the people being read it, that if they're a girl and they want to play soccer or some kind of traditionally male sport, then maybe they're actually a boy and not actually a girl who just wants to play boys' sports. They also tell a story about a little boy who wants to dance, and because he wants to dance, maybe he's actually a girl trapped in a boy's body.
That's promoting the gender roles a lot, and I don't think it's a good idea to promote that gender role. It just limits so many people. It's ridiculous.
Do you think it might make kids who have those kind of feelings, like boys who want to dance and girls who want to play, contact sports, do you think it might make them question their gender, where other kids might have just thought that was a normal part of being them?
I mean, I think they'd question who they are. I know my sister's a big soccer player, and I was a big sports person as well. I was very questionable. Yeah.
Did you ever think you were a boy?
I mean, I was pretty certain that I was a chick.
Would you be surprised if you found out that the Safe Schools program teaches children that there's more than two genders? There's more than boys or girls. Did you know that?
No, I don't know.
That's what the Safe Schools program teaches, that there's more than two genders, and that when the doctor says you're a boy or girl at birth, he may be wrong.
Yeah, well, that will be very surprise for me, because first time I heard that, I'm like, yeah. So they everything they have to be equal, like either if it's a boy or a girl. Yeah.
What if it goes against what the parents believe? Should the schools be teaching children things that are opposite to what the parents believe about their values and their beliefs?
No.
Do you know what Safe Schools is?
I don't know, sir.
Do you know what gender theory is?
No, I don't know what is gender theory.
Are you a tourist or do you live in Australia?
I live in Australia, and I'm a student, international student.
Oh, great. Where are you from?
China.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So in Australia, we've got this program that's trying to be put into schools called Safe Schools.
Yeah.
So what they say is that the program is all about bullying.
Oh.
But then what they teach the children is all about sexuality and gender.
Oh, really?
They teach kids that things like there's more than two genders.
Yeah.
You might be a boy, you might be a girl, or you might be anything else that you want to be. Do you think that's the kind of thing that government schools should be teaching children?
No, definitely not. Because I think these things are unacceptable for children. I think children should learn something really not too adults think can accept. I think they should learn something like how to protect themselves by cartoon, like some. Yeah, this thing definitely not. Yeah.
Tell me about why you're here, what your position is on gender theory in the education system.
Mate, I'm here because I'm very concerned about this gender fluid theory that's crept its way into our education system and being taught in schools, even here in Queensland. And it's come upon us really suddenly, and we've got to resist this. This is part of an insidious indoctrination of children that teaches them that their gender is fluid, that a boy might be trapped in a girl's body and vice versa. It's not scientific, it's harmful. It puts kids on a pathway towards harmful puberty blockers to suppress their natural development, cross-sex hormones to alter their bodies, then ultimately irreversible surgery that mutilates their genitals, that results in young girls having their breasts cut off because they think they want to be a boy or a man. And I certainly don't want to downplay the real pain that some people feel. Gender dysphoria is a real thing, but what we know overwhelmingly from the social science is that if you leave kids alone, don't confuse them, 90% of kids come through puberty completely comfortable in their biological sex, and we should encourage that, not try and put kids on a path of confusion.
There's certainly no scientific basis, solid research saying that puberty blockers are safe and they're going to have no outcomes, that chopping bits off in your teens and early adolescence is going to be safe and there's going to be no regrets later. We don't deal with body dysmorphia that way. If somebody thinks they've got a left arm that shouldn't be there, it's grossly unethical to consider making a surgical change without dealing with the underlying pathology.
That's right, and look, I think these are deeply distressing psychological disorders. Now, straight away, the trans community is going to be upset at that comment, but you don't give liposuction to someone suffering with anorexia. You help them work through the underlying issue. And Dr. John Whitehall of the University of Western Sydney has done amazing work and researched the effects on the brain of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, the harmful side effects. You don't hear about these harms at a safe school near you. And our political leaders, conservative politicians who should be doing more about this, are letting us down. The fact that this isn't being taken out of our education system, out of our universities, lock, stock and barrel, is a failure of leadership.
Isn't it just a violation of all common law tradition that children belong to parents? It's the primary right of parents to teach values and to teach ethics and belief and things like that. And isn't it just a usurpation of those parental rights for the government to tread on this territory and ignore what the parents want?
This is a really good point you raised, Dave, because if you read some of the guidelines, particularly those in America, where they're probably a couple of years ahead of us in terms of this transgender agenda, it's very clear that the authorities behind this do not believe that parents should have a say in this. Even in our own so-called Safe Schools program, the resources that were being promoted through Minus 18 said that children should be able to have sex change surgery with or without parental consent. And that's a direct quote from the Minus 18, the Nevo resource that was being promoted in schools and still is being promoted in schools in the likes of Victoria. In New South Wales, the Education Department there has said that if teachers see parents who are not affirming a child that wants to change their gender, those parents should be reported. This is chilling stuff, and this is where these people are going. It's authoritarian. Yeah, well, look, that's extreme, but it's that sort of level of coercion. It's putting us on a path to totalitarianism, and it's the idea that the state owns your children, that you don't have responsibility for them.
Yeah. Look, left or right, I think the real spectrum we should be obsessing with or focusing on is the totalitarianism, the authoritarianism versus libertarianism, where we have less government controlling our lives as opposed to the government taking away our rights and doing our jobs, immersing themselves in our lives for us.
Well, this is being used as a tool by those who believe in bigger government to control parents, to control families. And look, you've only got to look at Marxist ideology, and it's no secret that this has come out of cultural Marxism. You've only got to look at Ros Ward herself out of La Trobe University. She says this. And Marxism is all about deconstructing the natural family. It always has been. That was always Karl Marx's aim. That's what the totalitarian states that embraced it have. Now, the gulags and the tanks and taking people away in the middle of the night didn't work so well in the 20th century, but the ideas haven't changed, and they're still using coercion through human rights commissions, through anti-discrimination legislation to enforce their totalitarian will on the population. And programs like Safe Schools are a stalking horse for cultural Marxism, for deconstructing the family, for taking away freedom. And you don't have to look too hard to see all those ingredients, and that's why it must be resisted, and that's why our parliamentarians have got to wake up and start fighting against this. And it's forever to the shame of conservative governments, and particularly the Conservative Abbott government, that Christopher Pyne, as Education Minister, protected this and funded it. And it took a big grassroots movement to get eventually Malcolm Turnbull to withdraw the funding. But by then, the damage is too late. It's too late. This has got its tentacles in our schools and education departments all over the country because of the leg up that was given to this, firstly by Bill Shorten, then by Christopher Pyne.
Yep. Now, there's probably 100, 150 people here today. I can't see any counter-protesters, which is a refreshing change, but that's probably just Queensland. There'd be no such luck in the states further south. What do you think people who aren't happy with this program should be doing, other than turning up with a protest like this? Are we ever going to be able to rest again and trust that the government isn't trying to sexualise our children and deconstruct family traditions?
Look, the price of liberty and freedom is eternal vigilance. That's a well-known maxim. And unfortunately, those of us who have grown up in Australia and taken the values of this country for granted can't afford to be apathetic anymore. We can't sit at home anymore. We have to attend events like this. We have to get active online. We have to be talking to our politicians, and we're going to have to vote different ways to bring about change. We need disruptors. That's why I've joined Australian Conservatives, because we need a disruptor in the system, a constructive disruptor to try and bring conservative politics back to its true north. You know, a lot of this happened on the watch of conservative governments who should have hit this on the head. John Howard himself said it. The thing that disappointed him the most was that conservative governments didn't immediately quash this. It took them way too long, and the damage has been done, and it's very hard to root this out. Yep. So vigilance is what we have to do, and I hope in years to come these sort of protests will grow. I hope it doesn't take us years to get rid of it, but we're going to have to be very committed to see this sort of stuff rooted out.
Yep. I appreciate your time and all the hard work you're doing for families in Australia. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for helping get the voice out.